This is Jack Donovan, author of The Way of Men, and you're listening to Start the World.
All right, I'm here today with Greg Hamilton. Greg's a good friend of mine, and we've known each other for a long time. Greg is a pig farmer, but you have done some other stuff in your life. So why don't you tell people a little bit about that?
Sure. I started my adult life in 3rd Ranger Battalion, and then went to the Regimental Reconnaissance Detachment, and then went into Special Forces. And simultaneously, I started not simultaneously, but at some point along that way, I started a business called Insights Training Center, teaching shooting and self-defense. And I did that concurrently while being in the National Guard and the Reserves and Special Forces. And then jumping way ahead, when I came back from Iraq in 2012 is when I kind of went weird and started a farm. So, but yeah, that's the quick and dirty of my background is Ranger Battalion and Special Forces and firearms instructor and tactics instructor for 30 years.
All right, cool. All right, so Greg and I have been talking back and forth about him coming on the podcast, and we wanted to talk a little bit about the way of men. And one of the things that interests me especially, and because when I wrote The Way of Men, I was really just doing a philosophical problem, trying to figure out, what men needed to do in a survival situation over a lifetime. And then Greg read the book years ago, and we've been talking about things. And it's really cool to see the way that The Way of Men is lined up with some of the background that other guys who have actually had to secure spaces. To see some of that verified. So why don't you tell me a little bit about some military situations and what you would actually do to secure a space? Because that's what the concept of the perimeter is in The Way of Men. It's about protecting a space and all the things that you need from other men when you start to do that. So
sure.
If you were going to set up a new camp or something like that, what would you do?
Well, I mean, I guess that there's a few different ways to go about it. So are you going to be covert, overt? Obviously you're interested in the idea we're going to defend the space. So versus only hold it for a short period of time. So I guess it starts with like what we would call a patrol base, which is something you're only going to stay in for a little while. We can talk about that, or we can expand it to the concept of a base camp, someplace you're staying for a long time, or even a beachhead. Nowadays, we don't tend to do beachheads on the beach. We do airfield seizures, where we take an airfield and build a beachhead inside of a place. But all those, I guess, would be applicable a little bit. So I guess you need to know what piece of property you're going to take and why. So there's got to be some value there to the spot that you're going to pick. Of course, when you're weak, if you're just a small patrol and you don't actually want to get in a fight, you're picking lousy territory because you don't want anyone else to come into the territory. Does that make sense?
Right.
So if you're not very strong, you're not going to go take the best territory. You're going to take whatever you can get, preferably something hidden from everybody. And if you're going to be more overt and stronger about it, you want to take really good territory, of course, because in the end, you want to be situated on a good piece of land. So that'd be start is figuring out what territory you want and why you want it and what you plan on doing there. And then what we would do is we would do, in Special Forces, we would do an area study. So we'd really delve into everything about the place, the geography, the weather, the people, the culture, and do what we call an area study so that we completely understand the space we're going into. So we can, obviously, when we get there, we can navigate it more correctly, make all the right decisions. On a more primitive level, if we're just going in and bashing our way in the front door kind of thing, once again, we just want to know, I guess, what else we want to do. And so when we take an airfield, we need to take the right size airfield. We need to know it's close enough to the next things we want to do, stuff like that. So first is all reconnaissance. It's all the, why do we want to go here? What purpose is it going to serve? All that kind of stuff. So first we would do reconnaissance, and that might include sending some people out there covertly to look around and see if it's going to fit our needs, and to get an idea of, once we do decide to occupy it, how we're going to occupy it. So I don't know if this is anywhere. Is this the direction you want to go with this question?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all interesting. I think to a lot of people listening, all that's interesting. I mean, I'm actually thinking, what are the things that you need to do? Like some of the first steps once you've taken over the space to secure it.
Okay, sure. Okay, so we'll use the concept of a patrol base first, probably. Step one is always security. So when you're going to go into a place, the very first thing you need to do is be ready to fight. And that never goes away. That is always your number one priority, is to be able to repel anyone that wants to kick you out of that spot. So step one is always security. So we're going to go in and we're going to lay in basic security, meaning we're going to put our best weapons in the spots where they can do the most damage. Everybody's going to know where their fighting position is, all that kind of stuff. And then the leaders will go around and check everybody's individual positions and see that they picked good positions, move them if they need to. And that'll keep going up the chain where, a lower level leader will check his guys, but then the next level leader, he's tying different sets of guys together. So he may come over and go, yeah, that's all great, but it doesn't fit the rest of the plan. So he'll move people around. And eventually we now have a plan of how we're going to defend this place. And we have all our weapons in the right spots. So that's absolutely number one. Then we want to punch out some security patrols. So we don't just want to sit there and wait to see what happens. We want to be active about this. So we'll take very small security patrols and we'll start pushing them out and start clearing area around us so that we can't be surprised. And also to find out any dangerous spots. So if there's any avenues of approach that we haven't already identified, we want to find those, because we might need to put permanent security on those or some kind of early warning or something there. So yeah, security would always be first. You got to be ready to fight, and you got to be capable of fighting. So is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of, what we've always come back to when I talk about the way of men and so forth. Men always had to be engaged and have that possibility, like you said, that they're going to have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been the role, is to create that perimeter. And I like what you were saying about going out into the space and finding unknowns and making them known. Because that's actually a concept that we're writing about a little bit right now, in terms of that's what men really do. They're imposing order on their environment by making it known.
Yep.
Because the unknown is chaos. And
right.
once you've identified things, then it feels safe to a certain extent. You have some idea what's going on, because when you first get to that space, right, you were in a situation where you don't know all the terrain, you don't know everything that's happening, and
you're blind.
Yeah, exactly. And so you need to make everything known. And I think that's something that I think is really important for men generally, is to create this sense of order around us. And I think it's part of our psychology that comes back to that situation, because you would have had to do the same thing, whether you're talking about modern warfare or you're talking about any space.
Yeah. Back when humans, or even pre-humans, just had sharpened sticks, the successful ones had to be doing this the same. There's nothing's changed except the weapon systems. You're gonna have a group of guys isn't all just gonna go, oh hey, let's all fall asleep. That's not how we do it, right? We put out security, and the groups of men that didn't put out security died.
Right. So exactly.
Right.
They're bears. They're all kind, other men. All kinds.
And there's other humans that want to kill you and take your stuff and take your women or whatever it is that they want to take. And so, security has always been number one. There's always got to be a plan. You see it with, wolves do it. When they go hunting, they leave security behind to protect the camp and protect the babies and all that stuff. And they don't leave their weaklings behind to do security either. It's really interesting. They pick mid-level wolves that are capable, right?
Nice.
And they make them do the security. Yeah. They don't want to. They argue about it, right? Because they want to go on the hunting party, right? But they're no, you're actually squared away. You're a sub-unit leader. You're competent. You got to do this task,
Right.
And humans are not that much different than that, obviously. So yeah, we want to send out security patrols, and we want to learn more. And we would do that with an airfield seizure, the same thing. We'd if we took a place very aggressively, the moment we establish immediate security, we want to punch people out all over the place looking, because we'd much rather run into a problem 400 meters, 1,000 meters, a couple miles away from us than run into it at us, right? Because that gives us all the time to get ready for it.
Exactly.
Okay. So yeah, security is always number one, being ready to fight. And then security is a constant process. So we're never done with that. The earth, ramparts turn into the wood walls, and the wood walls turn into the stone walls. Like those castles got built on top of castles, right? They didn't abandon that spot and pick a new spot. They just kept making it better every generation, right?
Absolutely.
Continuous improvement.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really important for people to think about, because I don't think that they really, modern society, right, is really castles upon castles upon castles upon castles.
absolutely, yeah, thousands
it's
of years of
security and
generational
figuring things
investment.
out, and like improving weapons, improving ways to be secure, and obviously with things that are going on in the world right now, there's biological security,
Sure.
Things but it's all about creating security and creating
Mm-hmm.
a kind of a sense of
And we call it
space.
Improving your position. So
Okay.
when you have nothing else to do, you improve your position. And Americans aren't really very good at it. It's really funny to watch Europeans improve their position. I think if you watch Germans from World War II or Russians, I mean, next thing you know, their bunker has furniture, and they've planted a garden, and they are, they really act like they're staying there, and we tend not to do that. The American soldiers, especially modern, we tend to get pretty lazy, and we just lay in the dirt and, wait to move to the new spot. We don't improve our position enough, is my point. But that's a few reasons for that: cultural and leadership failure, right? We really should continue to improve our position, continue to make it better. And the most important thing to make it better is, of course, once again, going back to security, make it better to fight from. But at some point, we're going to improve it so that we can just live better, obviously. And we've done that. Like we've become so strong that we can have flush toilets and electricity, right? Those don't make us better at fighting, but they sure make living nicer. So,
absolutely.
Constant improvement of position. And, I guess we all kind of do that. That's why people work on their houses and build new fences and all these things. They're improving their position, basically. They just don't think of it from a security standpoint. We tend to think of it nowadays more of just a comfort standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but obviously, I was thinking about when we weren't sure how things were going to go here. I'm like, maybe I need to fix those lights above the garage, and
right.
that are supposed to flip on, and they don't.
Yes.
Stuff like that improves the security of the situation. And maybe
that's true, especially with the plague. People are a little bit more worried about security, and it's something we should always concern ourselves with. But we get lackadaisical because nothing happens, nobody attacks us, and generally we've all picked safe enough places to live that we don't have to think about it very much. But for sure, I've at least I've checked all my weapons and all that kind of stuff, and I've picked up a bit and made my place more secure, and I'll continue to do that.
Yeah. Do you think that after we're all released again into the world, I mean, do you think there's going to be some kind of boom in people taking interest in that again, or do you think that they'll be like, okay, we're safe again, and they'll go back to normal?
I don't know. That's really hard to say. As a trainer doing self-defense training, it's always a weird cycle, because people buy guns at a different cycle than they train on guns, right? So right now it's the gun buying, so I would assume that the next cycle would be training, right? But they only have so much income, and so they can only spend it one place at a time. And so right now you see a ton of people buying guns. Not a lot of prior gun owners aren't buying more guns so much as new gun owners. So that's always good. So yeah, there'll probably be some interest in it. I don't see people spending their discretionary money on cruise lines. So they're going to do something with it. So yeah, I think probably, I think people are going to be more concerned, especially, we don't know how far this is going to go. So, we know that people are, being released from jails like crazy, and, crime in Seattle, downtown Seattle burglaries were up 87% in 2 weeks or something like that, which is not surprising. And so, yeah, maybe people will wake up that they're responsible for themselves, that, the police investigate crimes. They don't really stop crimes. And so maybe people will become more aware of that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Police aren't there to protect you. They're there to clean up the mess after it happens. And to also obviously be a threat.
Yeah.
But there's punishment available at some point.
Right. Yeah, it would be great if they preemptively stopped things by their presence. I try to talk about in class, one of the things that we used to call police officers was peace officers. And the idea is they promote peace through their presence. But honestly, we're all so spread out that there's just not enough cops around, right? And they're to really impose themselves upon the criminals and make the criminal know they're being watched, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I almost think that's sometimes you wonder if those CSI programs and what is the one that I always watch late at night? The forensic files and all the things that, there's a perception that no matter what you do, eventually it might be 30 years down the road, but eventually they're going to get you, which I don't know that actually.
Yeah.
But,
I don't think
a
anybody
lot of
cares.
people have that. I don't know.
Nobody cares that much. Unless it's a murder. No, just nobody cares,
Right.
All those burglaries and most of the rapes and all that kind of stuff. If the guy doesn't get caught right away, nobody's ever going to catch him. So unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of people, I think, doing some foolish hard signaling too right now about if you're going to raid your neighbors, maybe don't put it on Instagram.
Yeah,
there's a lot of we're ready to raid it, and I'm like, maybe you should, if that's a possibility, you should probably keep it quiet.
Yeah, and I really try to stay away from that. I think it's I understand that it can be a funny joke, I guess,
sure.
but I kind of would like to consider myself to be a good guy, and I don't plan on raping and pillaging innocent people. So,
at least not on day one.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm not going to open with that probably. So, I have a very small neighborhood. I think we have 29 houses in a neighborhood. It's one way in, and actually geographically, we're really secure here. We actually have cliffs around our neighborhood and draws and all this stuff. And I've talked to a few of my neighbors. We have some very old people in the neighborhood, and so we talked with them about being safe. And I've talked with my near neighbors about whether they have food and whether they have a gun and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't want to go too far with them because I don't want to scare the crap out of them.
Right.
I figure if the situation escalates, if crime really does go crazy, all that kind of stuff, we can always revisit and have more talks. But they already are security minded. I can already tell that the good 6 or 8 closest houses to me are already thinking about being more aware, being more secure, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you're pretty far out there, as am I. I think that that's what I've been saying. If the Dalles, if there's problems in the Dalles, I feel like the rest of the world's on fire.
Yeah, and we live in the Pacific Northwest. It's just not like we have the millions of people that could go savage and start burning their way across the wasteland. We're just not in Detroit or Philly or Baltimore, so I just don't see it happening up here.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things, like when I was living in LA, I always thought, that place is the haves and the have-nots are so close together.
Yep.
You have Beverly Hills, Compton, and like some really bad neighborhoods next to like extraordinary wealth. Like not just a rich house, like millions and millions and millions of dollars. And that's where that place could
I
just,
actually almost drove into LA during the Rodney King riots.
Oh, really?
Yes. I stopped in the Grapevine. I was tired. I didn't want to drive anymore. I stopped and walked in got a motel. I walk in, I turn the TV on, I go take a shower, I come out, and I'm like, what the hell's going on in Beirut? And I stop and right, because there's all this fire and gunplay, and I start watching it. I'm like, holy shit, that's LA. And I'm like, 45 minutes away. So I drove through it the next morning.
Wow.
There was nothing going. I was on the freeway, nothing but smoke, and no violence, of course. So,
right.
And I was on my way to teach shooting in San Diego and then go to a gun class in Arizona. And so I had my rifles and thousands of rounds of ammo in my car. So all my friends were watching the news, waiting to see my vehicle on the news.
Totally. Now, one of the things that I think, we talked a little bit before we started recording, I think is really important, and something that you really do well, because I've been up to your place and some of the parties that you've had at your house, Thanksgiving and so forth. One thing that I think you do really well that I think people ask me a lot about is, how do I build a network? And that's really, I'm really hoping that people come out of this thinking, hey, I need a better local network. I can't just be in my house and not know anyone around me and not have all my friends are like 7,000 miles away.
Right. Yeah.
And so forth. How do you go about building networks? One of the concepts you talked to me about years ago that I always thought was really good was you always said that you had overlapping circles. And so talk a little bit about your strategy as far as groups of people.
Okay. Yeah. So I think in the talks we've had over the years, and seeing other people talk about the same subject a lot, people they really want to start all their own things. And I think that's the worst idea. Because honestly, I mean, if you have like 3 to 5 friends, which is what the most people have, that are quality friends, you've just told yourself what your organization and leadership ability is. 3 to 5 friends, probably.
Right.
And that's the start point. That's the start point of military leadership. If you're a fire team leader, you're going to have 3 guys under you, and that's where you learn, and that's where you start. But I think a lot of people are just convinced they need to, and obviously you said it in your book, start a gang, but really what you should do is join a gang.
Right.
My personal opinion.
Yeah.
Right. You should join something that's pre-existing and learn and be willing to take a long road, because not everybody's going to be a leader, and not everybody's going to start out as a leader. Not everybody's going to be a natural leader. It might take, even if someone wants to be a leader in their gang, that could take years to evolve to. And because you have to evolve your skills, no different than the military. You're going to spend a year or two as a team leader. You're going to spend a year or two as a squad leader, right? And then finally you're moving up to platoon sergeant. So you're talking 8 years later is before you're the second in command of 30 to 40 guys. So, it's not a fact, and that's a full-time, and that's doing it as a full-time job. Right. So, I think people have to be accepting of the fact that they're not necessarily going to be in charge, that none of it's going to be as cool as they think it's going to be. And they should start with what they have. That could be the Eagles Club. That could be a gun club, a gun range, right? All these different clubs that are out there is what I really think people should be involved in. And be that your gym, your jiu-jitsu gym, or your lifting gym. And, you talked about that even in at the end of Way of Men, or then in your second book, talking about like guys starting gyms. Just a powerlifting gym is a great place for guys to go to. And so I think joining pre-existing structures, and then finding your place. So now I spent a lot of time running my own business and spent a lot of time as a kind of mid-level leader in the military. And so it's not unusual for me to end up in some sort of a leadership position in some of my hobbies. But in others, absolutely not. you know. In others, I stay as a private, you know. And I like to introduce, like you said, the multiple circles is so I don't just have one circle where, you know, if you don't shoot and climb and lift and this and that, you can't be my friend, right? Like
Right.
I can, you know, I can have a climbing friend that doesn't shoot and a shooting friend that doesn't lift and you know, and I try not to overjudge people, you know, I try to take them for what they're worth. And that took a long time for me because I started in Ranger Battalion. We're pretty rough on each other. It's pretty Spartan. And if somebody doesn't meet all the standards, they're worthless practically. And you know, that takes a long time to get over. And you got to realize there's a lot of good people out there that have failings, like all of us, and I should take them for what they're worth, right? And if they're a good motivated person, you know, okay, he's not in shape, all right, so I guess that's not, I won't ever give him in a crisis the job that requires being in shape. You know,
Right.
but that doesn't mean he can't be a useful friend and a useful teammate. So that's the big thing for me is I had to kind of not really I wouldn't say lower my standards because that just sounds wrong. I really had to change them and make them realistic, and be more open to, you know, if people are good people, they're good people. If they want to be, you know, if they're solid and they help you out and they show up when it's crunch time, you know, that counts for more than their resume. So, so for me, that's how I changed. And, you know, so yeah, you said, you know, you come up and I have a big barbecue or something and have 30 or 40 people over. And most of those 40 people have only met 3 or 4 people at that party because they're from all different circles.
Right.
And I think that is important for people to do, is to branch out and join those other circles. And that takes a lot of effort, and that's not something we're used to. I'm thinking about moving, and so one of the place I thinking about moving to, I really want to integrate myself into the community when I get there. And so I've went up there already, and I just walk up and start talking to people and get invited to the Grange Hall or get invited to the Eagles Club or whatever. And then that person introduces me to other people, and then it just keeps going. And I think we need to really put ourselves out there that way. So
Interesting.
Is that where you wanted to go with that, or you want to talk about any of those subjects?
No,
more?
absolutely. I mean, that's I think that's definitely something that people need to think about. And it is hard. It is hard to go out and do that. Like, you're much better walking up to people and talking to them than I am. I mean,
I have to make myself do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
I pre-plan it in my head, and then I'm like, okay, damn it, do it.
Yeah.
Make myself.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you, you know, like, what are your strategies for, because you said you've done some of that in the military, like walking up to people and talking to them in a certain
way.
way.
You know, so yeah, I ended up my last 10 years or so in the military doing human intelligence type work and surveillance work. And, you know, I'm originally from Seattle, and Seattle's original Seattle culture is a Norwegian culture. And basically what that means is we really want to watch you for a couple of generations to see if you're a good family before we talk to you. You know, we're just not sure which way that family's going to go for a while. Right. Give them a long arm, and we wait. And I actually have I had a guy from New York move out here, and I was talking about this, and he goes, yeah, I actually was looking at a house to buy, and I walked next door. This is here in Seattle. Knocked on the door, guy answered the door, and he goes, hey, I'm thinking about buying the house next door, and I wanted to know if this is a good neighborhood. And he goes, oh yeah, it's a good neighborhood. I mean, it's not like we're going to be inviting each other over for barbecues or anything. This is the guy's opening statement, you know, is back off. And so growing up, the reason I preface all this is growing up with that culture, I was not gregarious like that. I can be very gregarious with people I know, but I definitely was never good at, you know, opening a group of people I don't know, or even integrating into, even if they want me to be integrated, I was never good at integrating, right? I was way too shy with people, way too standoffish with people, more standoffish than shy, probably. And I was in Iraq, and I was working with a special forces guy, and we would walk through this headquarters building, this giant barn. When I say a giant barn, I mean like 500 people, 1,000 people working in this giant building. And we would going to see someone, it would take us 45 minutes to get to the person we were going to see, because he would stop and talk to every single person, and somehow he had talked to them before. Even if he had only just talked to them once before, that would be what the conversation was about, right? And it was just nonstop talking to people, and it would drive me crazy, because I realized, I'm thinking we need to go do this thing, and then I finally realized, no, actually he's actually doing our job, which is building tons of relationships with people. And getting people to like us. And if people like us, they're more likely to do things for us, more likely to open doors for us. And unfortunately, he died. But right about that time, I'm like, damn it, this is a skill I need to master. I need to just start doing this. And so I just started making myself walk up and talk to people. And it's not necessarily easy. It wasn't easy for me. So I definitely would kind of pre-plan it. Sometimes before I'd walk in a room, I'd be all like, not excited about the idea of talking to all these people. And I would just have to make myself stand up and put a smile on my face and do the Tony Robbins thing, which is, the Tony Robbins, how to be a confident public speaker advice. You ever heard that one?
No, but I should probably look into it.
Okay. Tony Robbins, you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Commercial guy. He says, if a lot of people are afraid of speaking in public, and he goes, it's really actually very, very easy to speak in public. What you want to do is you want to walk up in front of people like a confident public speaker would walk up in front of people, and then you want to look at them like a confident public speaker would look at them, and then you want to speak to them like a confident public speaker would speak to them. And it actually works. So, I mean, it's one of those fake it till you make it things that actually works, because there's no real risk. Just put a damn smile on your face, stand up straight. And we know that the mind follows the body and the body follows the mind. So if I just put myself in the posture of this confident, happy, gregarious person, and then I just look people in the eye and smile and start talking to them, they don't know that I'm faking it. Right? And in fact, my own body doesn't even know I'm faking it anymore. Right? Because I've turned on my own emotions correctly and all those kind of things. So a little bit of, neuro-linguistic programming hacking, I guess, for yourself is, put on your happy face and walk up and talk to people. And once again, it goes back to those realistic expectations, and that judgmental stuff is, this person may look very, very different than me, but I guarantee we have commonalities. So that's another thing I've really tried to focus on in life. I've always kind of focused on that, which has helped me a lot, which is I don't look for differences. I look for commonalities, so I can have a conversation with just about anybody. Now, they can't always have a conversation back with me, because in their mind, they're thinking about politics or race or this or that, and that's blocking them, right? But I don't let it block me. If I want to be if I want to know someone, either because I actually think I want to know them, or because they are some gatekeeper, right? And a lot of times that's just a gatekeeper. That's a person that you need to like you because they're going to allow you to do things. They're going to introduce you to people, things like that, right? And so a lot of the relationships we're building for secondary reasons, right? So I want to be able to walk up and find those commonalities. And, we do that when they're teaching us asset handling or recruitment. When you're doing human intelligence, there, you do a little bit of a study of a person, which I do that now. If I need something from someone, I always try to background check them, right? Find out, are they married? Do they have kids? What are their hobbies? These various things like that, right? And so
you assemble a dossier.
Basically, you do a target folder on them. Like if it's important to me for business or socially or whatever it's going to be, I want to know the commonalities so I can start a good conversation. I'll dress for success, right? If I'm going to something, I went to last year, a big nonprofit farm thing, and it's almost all like mid 30s to mid 50s women that run this big farming nonprofit, right? And so I've got to go in there and build rapport with these ladies. Right. Well, I need to look like a squared away farmer. I don't need to look like the average pig farmer covered in pig poo. Right. I need to look like a pig farmer, like they imagine the perfect pig farmer would look, right? Right? Not
the,
how it
the
actually
platonic
is.
form of a pig farmer.
Yes, exactly. You know, some perfect English countryside gentleman pig farmer
Right.
that isn't covered in pig poo. I need to access that from them, right? To access their fantasy of this is the perfect pig being raised the perfect way by the perfect person, and make them want to know me, right? I'm going in there to know them because I want something from it. But what I really am trying to convince them to do is to think I'm so cool that they're cool by knowing me, right? And they're cool by helping me,
Yeah.
right? And so that's, I mean, there's, you know, it's manipulation, but I'm not hurting anybody with it. You know, everybody's getting what they want in the end, and so that's what I do. You know,
I think that's a little bit of a mindset thing too, because people think about that. Like you could say that in a way that sounds very transactional,
mm-hmm.
you know, and everything is transactional anyway. You know, we're friends with people who we get some value from
Yep.
in some way.
Yep.
But yeah, and there are people who would look at that as like using people or whatever. But I guess it comes down to intent too. You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
you have benevolent intent, or is it, you know, or it's not like you're trying to like take their money. You know,
No, I'm not stealing. I'm giving what I believe to be a great product back to them. I hope in the end it's an equal transaction where both people are getting huge value. And you know, you might have been in the usually in the unarmed self-defense class during the body language lecture, I talk about that all communication is manipulation.
Yeah.
Which is a NLP saying that is, you know, it's made to be a controversial saying, because if you say all communication is manipulation, most people, of course, put some negative connotation on the word manipulation.
Sure.
But if you're in a class and you're paying the instructor money to change the way you think about something, then you, in fact, are paying him to manipulate you. And so manipulation has to do with the intent of the manipulator and the manipulatee. Right. And as long as they're both happy with it, then it's not a bad thing. So for me, it's neutral, unless I'm doing something nefarious, which I hope I wouldn't do. I mean, in a military intelligence situation, I'd be somewhat nefarious. We recruit people that, you know, in not necessarily nice ways, but that's a very different situation. In this situation, I want long-term relationships. I don't want this person to feel used. That's not going to do me any good a year from now, 10 years from now, etc. Right? That would ruin your reputation to do something like that. So, but I definitely engineer it. I take some time and I think about it. I have little fantasy conversations of how it would go, all my different openers. And I also started doing a thing where I just started complimenting people, like just compliment 10 people in a day on something, just because I'm so lousy at it.
That's really important too. Yeah.
Yeah. Go to the grocery store and just, you know, walk by somebody and be like, cool jacket. That's it. Like, don't stop moving. Like, don't have a conversation, like, especially if you're shy, right? Or, you know, just tell them something is cool or something is awesome. Tell them their car is cool. Tell them their clothes are cool. You know, tell them awesome hairstyle or whatever, and just walk on and make that natural before you even try to move to the next step, right? It's just like homework assignments, basically.
Yeah, that's actually really good. I've been trying to do that even online, because you can do that online as well. I mean, because comments, that's what comments are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody wants to go online and make a bitchy comment, but about stuff, but really, it's really easy to be like, hey, that was good. You know, you did something good there. I like that. You know, again, find the commonalities of the things that you like. I may not like everything that you're doing, but you know, like, yeah, a lot of people, I mean, and it's what you're interested in too, I guess, is part of it too. I mean, I'm interested in visuals, so I comment great photo a lot of time, because if it's actually a good photo, I'm like, that's good. I like that. And it's genuine, because I don't have to make up a fake compliment, because I'm like, I really like it. And so I think,
no, I don't. Yeah, I don't do any fake compliments. You know, it is a real compliment. You know, I just actually say it instead of not saying it. And it's got to the point now, and after doing it for like 10 years, that in fact, you're talking about online comments, is, you know, everyone wants to criticize everything, you know? So, you know, I'll publish some video of some kid band, and then everybody wants to talk about oh, well, somebody should really professionally mix that. And, oh, somebody needs to turn up the, whatever. And I'm like, Jesus, give them a break. They just did an awesome, can't you just say something awesome, and tell them they did a great job and like help them move forward a step, they don't need criticism. Most people don't need criticism, right?
Well,
I don't.
I mean, we need criticism, but like it's criticism that has value.
Well,
I mean,
it's
like I would
criticism.
ask you like, hey, how am I coming across? Because I value your opinion, but I don't value everyone on the internet's opinion because I don't know them. They might suck.
Unsolicited criticism. Yeah, unsolicited criticism is generally worth what you paid for it, right? Or less. And so it's like, yeah, anybody can criticize, but like I didn't ask for it for one, and and I don't know. Like you said, I don't know who the hell you are. Like, why would I listen? So, you probably want to establish your bona fides before you criticize what I'm doing. So,
yeah. It's, I think that actually, it almost sounds cheesy, but it's, I think you're creating a positive culture around you by doing that too.
Absolutely. No, I was starting in Ranger Battalion, it's a very negative place. It used to be. It's a very different culture nowadays. But back when I was there, like you couldn't screw up. Like if you failed at all, you might as well just pack your bags and leave. And, this is a daily thing. Like just everything is a competition, and not like you have to be great at all times. If you're a low level guy, you have to be like, you're really competing with your level guys. But as you go up in rank, it just gets more difficult.
Right.
And guys truly like, would screw something up so bad that by the time everybody got back to the barracks, their stuff was packed and they were gone. It was very harsh, negative culture. And it took me years to get over that. And I don't want to live that way. Right. Like I was just a flaming asshole all the time, and, you're just a jerk. Your life isn't any fun. You're no fun. Nobody wants to really be around you. And I didn't want to be that way. So I decided to focus on the positive and compliment myself. And that goes back to that, is it Deborah Tanner, Don't Shoot the Dog, the click training lady? Who's the click?
You mentioned that before. Yep.
Yeah. She's all about that positive reinforcement stuff. And it really does work to congratulate yourself. I do it in shooting. I do it in all sports now. And I'm way better at learning athletics with positive reinforcement loops than not. And it's not really cheesy. It actually works. We're not just telling ourselves we're awesome. We're congratulating ourselves when we appropriately succeed, right? And when we see someone else appropriately succeeding, we should congratulate them, right? And I don't have to withhold my congratulations until somebody wins an Olympic gold medal, right? If they're a 12-year-old and they're doing awesome for a 12-year-old, I should tell them they're doing awesome for a 12-year-old, right? If you're brand new at some activity, I should be congratulating you for being really good for being brand new at an activity. And I think we just hold each other to and ourselves to these really unrealistic standards, and it creates a negative loop, and then we're just unhappy people. And so to be positive, we need to congratulate ourselves, but also for me, it's not just about being a happy person. I'm more successful when I do positive reinforcement than when I do negative reinforcement. I'm not just happier. I'm better at everything, and I'm better at everything quicker, much quicker. Like it doesn't take 25% the time to get good at something, in my experience, when you're being positive versus negative.
Yeah. No, I could see that. Well, there's a phenomenon, I think, when guys are learning something that they're like, like sorry, where they're beating themselves up the entire time, and that's just how it's going to. Yeah, it took me a while with martial arts to get out of that mindset a little bit. Like, oh, I'm just going to suck at this for a while, and that'll be fun. Mm-hmm. I'll slowly get better.
Yeah. We have to be goal oriented, and if you're goal oriented, you're going to have some negativity because you're going to fail. But
sure.
I try to balance that goal orientation with the process orientation, right? Like give into the process to some degree. Not so much I give up on having goals, but if you don't enjoy the process too, it's going to be a long time before you have any fun. So,
Yeah, it's definitely a balance, I think, with that kind of stuff, because
mhm.
people get wrapped up in the other side of the enjoy the process thing, and yeah, I yeah, they lose sight of the goal part.
Absolutely. And then you're just a hippie who never gets anything done. Right. So, yeah,
Exactly.
there's some balance there, most definitely. Um, so yeah, I had to teach myself to meet people really, and teach myself to be good at it. At least I was in a communication class years ago, and the lady was talking about that, obviously if you've always been understood and you've always gotten what you wanted, you don't need to learn to communicate. And but obviously most of us, even good communicators, can look back at their history and go, I've had a lot of failings. And
Sure.
if you've had a lot of failings, then you want to kind of take conscious control of your communication and say, well, let's focus on what doesn't work and what does work, and let's stop doing what doesn't work and let's do more what does work. And that takes some conscious control. So like I said, I actually kind of do target folders. I recon people and I figure out who's who and who I need to talk to, and I always try to get an introduction from somebody I already know, right? I try never to cold call people. I'm still kind of lousy at the cold call. I can do it when I have to, but it's much better if I even get an electronic introduction, right?
Mhm.
We all know that, like, getting that introduction helps a ton. So I definitely strategize my communication more, and because of it, I think I'm more successful. I build rapport with people a lot faster.
Yeah, and if you mentioned earlier about everybody always wants to start a group and be the leader.
Hmm.
There's definitely a phenomenon with that. People play Dungeons and Dragons with it a little bit. Like,
Hmm.
oh, we're going to start a group, and this is what it's going to be. Like, they have their whole what is it, the whole structure of the group, and everything mapped out in their mind how it's going to work. And what this really is a lot more about building relationships,
Hmm.
rather than like, okay, well, who's going to be the second in command, third command, da, da,
Right.
da, 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 what are our primary objectives, and all that kind of stuff. And it's more about knowing people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, people want to start these basically some kind of paramilitary organization,
Oh, totally.
whether it's built around guns or not. It doesn't have
Right.
to be about guns, but they're trying to create this paramilitary structure, and without an objective, without some kind of mission statement that is really important, I just don't see how you're going to really accomplish that unless we're actually going to get on a ship and sail across the ocean to some land that we've never been to before. Like, what compels us to put ourselves in that structure? um, and we're not going to be in it 24/7. This isn't
Right.
like a logging camp or a fur trading camp or something out. We're in normal life around normal people all the time and going back to our own homes and all these kind of things. And so I just I don't see that as being a realistic goal to, especially voluntary, not paying people, right? And we're going to have
Yeah.
this great big hierarchical structure and all these rules. It's just probably not very realistic. If it's not being successfully done, there's probably a reason,
Right.
right? So we should probably model the organizations that are realistically actually being done. And in fact, why model them when we could just join them? The best thing you could do is take your 3 to 5 friends and join some local social or sporting organization and embed yourself in that organization and be liked by a lot of people and build a lot of rapport and build support, and then get more of your friends to join, and not take it over, but make that your thing. I think that would be better for most people, generally.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because people used to start. If you think about the fraternities, there was
Hmm.
this whole boom in America of all these fraternities, and I go through the town where I live, and almost all of the main buildings in town were built by a different men's fraternal organization.
Yep. Yep.
The Odd Fellows, and there's an Odd Fellows building, and a Moose building, and an Elks building, and the Masons building, and they all had those. And those organizations are all still around in some way,
Hmm.
but they don't seem to have the same influence and attraction.
No, I mean, fraternal organizations, we've talked about that. They've definitely died off, but there's no reason why people shouldn't go re-energize one of them. They already exist. They already have buildings. They already have members. They have a structure. And so re-energizing something like that probably be a better goal than starting your own thing. And coming from the gun world, I go to gun ranges all over the country, and all the nice gun ranges were built in the 40s and 50s. Same thing. It was that group of guys, kind of fraternal organizations. They had their gun club, and they built a gorgeous gun club because that was their thing. And you just don't see it happening anymore. You don't see fraternal organizations or clubs building almost anything. They can barely even upkeep what they're doing anymore. Now everything's just for profit, right? It's like if anything gets built, it's a for-profit organization that builds it. And it's kind of sad. But that's a failing on all our part for not organizing ourselves and allowing ourselves, we've talked about it, like this toxic individualism, right? Right, where we've been just taught to be such individuals that we don't join anything, and then all these organizations die, and then we're left fractured, and alone. So it didn't used to be that way. It was only 40, 50 years ago that every man would be part of some organization, right?
Well, isn't that to a certain extent because a lot of those organizations were crashed? Like they were crashed. Women decided they wanted to be part of it, and then it became not a fun boys club anymore because it's not the boys club. Now it's just like now it's just going to a party.
Sure.
It's not the same kind of thing because men want to have that separate space and that separate time, so they can go to the boys clubs. We're going to go play poker and talk about whatever and have our own space. And that's really why they built those, clubs.
That's probably true. Yes. That's absolutely true. I forgot that we've had that discussion before. That no doubt. And so, they're not going to be as cool, but I still think you got to use them for what you can. It's one of those things, just like a relationship with a person. You see the strengths and you go, okay, look, there's weaknesses.
Right.
But I'm just going to have to deal with that. And I'm going to have to get from it what I can. You're right. It's not as cool.
And it's a shame because the real estate they have is fantastic.
Oh, I know.
I mean, there's an Elks Club, and my dad's actually a member of the Elks Clubs, and I think he just joined it to have somewhere to go play darts or something, for exactly that reason, just to have some place to go out and meet people and whatever.
Yep.
But when he came to Hood River, he was a member of the Elks Club. He's like, "Oh, I'm a member of that. I can go in," and so he took us all into the Elks Club.
Awesome,
man. Do they have the upstairs room where the bar is and everything overlooks the Columbia? It's like it's if you would buy that building now, I have no idea what it would be even worth. But they have this fantastic giant building that you can do all kinds of things in, and I mean that may be something maybe people need to look at, how to re-energize some of those clubs and so forth.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, the new place I'm thinking about moving, they have a Grange Hall, which is that's a farmer's club. It used to be a farmer's club. It's not so much anymore, but it still kind of is. And that Grange Hall is right beside the Elks Club. Both of them overlook Puget Sound. They're both up on a hill with the view spots with decks, and all that stuff. Because guys back in the day, back in the 50s when they built those places, they picked decent places to put them and they put some money into it. So, I think that most of us should rejoin. So the only reason I haven't done it here is because I'm planning on moving, and I want to move to a smaller community. And when I go there, I'll probably join all those organizations just because. Which ones are left that are men's? Like, is the Masons still all men?
Yeah.
I think the Masons is still like the secret male society.
It is. The Masons is the only one that's left as far as I know. And then that comes with some extra stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta have a pant leg. You gotta do your pant leg up and your napkin or something.
Well, there's kind of a belief system involved with and that's I think one of the things that maybe made that it's a barrier of entry. For people.
Yeah, probably.
There's definitely a kind of odd belief system that goes with it.
I'm not sure what they actually believe and what they pretend to believe, just so they can have a secret club.
Probably so. I know there's a lot of memorization. Like, I knew a guy not too long ago who was in it, but my grandfather was actually, I guess he was a Shriner. And
Okay.
I think one of my his I think brother-in-law was really high up in that, and that was a really good thing for them. I mean, they had these giant pancake dinners in these giant places in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and
Hmm.
it was pretty impressive. But you know, I mean, there are some like rituals and stuff that are going on with people. You know, that's a tricky
Rituals.
thing.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, are they the right ones? You know, that's the tricky thing. You know, is that the ritual I want to do?
Yeah.
You know, because that stuff has to mean something, I think, for it
Hmm.
to be powerful. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. But yeah, like the gun club actually is a good example too. That's, I think,
Yeah,
a
I think
sensible, because it's a shared interest thing.
mhm.
You know that.
I think people could do the same thing. Like you talked about, you talked about starting weightlifting gyms, and
Mhm.
uh, you know, same thing with martial arts gyms, like starting some kind of nonprofit jiu-jitsu gym, or starting a combination boxing, jiu-jitsu, weightlifting gym, or
Mhm.
something like that. That'd be pretty cool stuff, right? Where nobody's really making any money off it, right? So there's a club fee, and that's another thing I think that we're really missing out at is kind of I hate to, go too hippie on you, but but the idea that we should all be giving something
Greg is
back
a
to our communities.
hippie pig farmer.
Yeah,
That's what
right, right. But we should be giving something back to our communities. And so when you start, when you're whatever kind of club you're going to start, what are you doing for anybody else? Is it just for you, or are you, And so like if I was starting a gym, would I want my gym members to help the local high school and junior high football team and the off season lift, stuff like that, like volunteer to help, to do something to help other people, I think is somewhat important. Because like you said, after this plague is done, most people I hope are going to realize they need more community.
Yeah.
And one of the ways, like you talked about the pancake breakfast and stuff, one of the ways, all those organizations all have some sort of charitable portion, right? Where they're not just, it's not just about them getting together and smoking cigars and drinking beer, right? They're actually, they go and do something good for their local community. And so
It's
I'm
kind of
not
a
sure.
trade-off too. Like I think like, because motorcycle clubs do that as
Mm-hmm,
well.
mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a public relations thing. Is like, well, we're not scary motorcycle guys. Look, we give toys for tots. You know,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
thing.
Some of it might just be a PR campaign. You're right.
But that's good. I
But
mean, again, like you said with manipulation, uh, the end result is positive.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. You're not
they're getting what they want, and kids are getting toys. So
sure. That's
who
true.
loses? You know. No,
I just like to see us figure out, one of the reasons I became a farmer actually is this probably a little weird, but I wanted to help people rebuild family and community. And I realized that we just don't sit around the dinner table with food that matters anymore. Like there's no story to any of the food. Nobody, it's just, it came in a plastic wrapped container. It came in a can, and we eat this stuff. And half the time everybody's on their phone or something while they're eating it. And I thought, if we could have special cool food and cool recipes and actually put some effort into our food, then maybe we have something to talk about. And then when you have people over and you have a nice dinner, you have something to talk about. And we definitely need to rebuild from the ground up. And so it's not just the way of men in the gang. Our families are not doing any better than the gang of men is doing, right?
Oh, sure.
And our communities are doing no better than our families are doing.
Right.
And so, of course, starting at the beginning, which is fixing yourself as a man. And of course, the only way you can fix yourself as a man is to be with other men, right?
Yeah.
But then as on, but it's not something that we can just, well, maybe some people can, if they don't have a family, they don't have a girlfriend, etc. They can just work on themselves for a while. But most guys are going to be doing all of this on the fly, where you're working on yourself, you're working on your family, you're working on your community, all at the same time. And so you are an unfinished product. You'll never be finished.
Sure.
And so I'm just free forming right here with this thought, but you got to work on yourself, work on your family, work on your community all at the same time. So that's what I think. You talked about is like just recently you said, people need people.
Yeah. Well,
right.
I mean, it sounds like what you're doing is improving your position.
Yes,
I
you should
mean,
be
that's
improving
what
your
that really
position.
is. I think actually that's going to be the title of this podcast.
Oh yeah,
Improve your position. Yeah. That's actually pretty good.
Sure.
Because that's what you're doing constantly. Because you're never going to be, like you said, you're unfinished,
Mhm.
regardless.
Yep.
And you know that's a conversation I think I'm going to have with a guy I know in England who's been on the show already, Richard Grannon. But because there are people who are going to have families, and there's going to be a ton of people who don't.
Mhm.
And as they age, what do they do?
Mhm.
Like, how do they find meaning in life, and how do they fit into this picture? Because just the
Right.
way, from whatever good or bad or society is right now,
Right.
there's going to be a lot of people who don't have that in some way. You know, they're not going to have the same structure because, you know, there was a time when that's just what everyone did.
Mhm.
And that's hasn't been the case
Right.
for a few generations. So there's going to be a lot of people floating around for the next, you know, 100 years, really, of you know, the generation. I mean, think of, you know, the millennials right now. Like, how many
Mhm.
of them are going to have? They're not going to grow up and have families with 6 or 7 kids. You
Right.
know, not all of them. I mean, some of them will, but you know, that's not always going to be a thing. So I think finding a way to integrate those people into the community as well is also kind of challenging.
Well, I think so. It's something I've thought about a bit. Is that you know, almost nobody is interested in leaving a legacy anymore, right? So you know, families. What do you know? What do people don't even have an inheritance for their kids anymore? They're planning on I call it leaving at zero, right? They're doing the bank account math so they die at zero. You know, they build up all these assets and then they spend the last portion of their life burning all those assets off,
Right.
and then they exit at zero. And that's not how we got here. That's not how we got electricity and plumbing and roofs over our heads. You know, we improved our position generationally, right? Like we just said earlier in the podcast, is, you know, every generation stacked upon what the last ones did. And man, I feel we've really lost that. And so, and the single people are doing it worse. And if you look at the communities of single people, they're definitely leaving at zero, right? They don't plan on having any legacy left over. They don't plan on having a cent to their name when they die. In fact, probably just debt that gets written off somehow. And I don't know that you can have a satisfying life. You can have a party life, but
Yeah.
I don't know
Well, I
that you can really
mean,
have a
and even
satisfying.
that, I mean, unless you're Dan Blazarian or whatever, like,
Right.
you know, I mean, that the party really, I don't see that going into like your 60s and so forth.
Well,
You know.
I see a lot of people try to do it. It
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
look
I'm
pretty.
hopeful, but
It doesn't usually look very attractive anymore. But they're still trying to do it, and
Right.
I don't know. I think that you know, I would obviously most of us wish we could go back in time and change a lot of things,
Sure.
but if since I can't go back in time, all I can do is start right now, which is building something that matters that's still here afterwards. And that could be your family, that could be your children, but really just making children isn't much of a legacy.
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, because that could
making
go
children,
south. They could go either way.
yeah, you know, and lots of people make bad kids. So
Yeah.
you know, making children, raising children, but then also, and this goes into your part about what about people that aren't going to have children, but what piece of land do you leave behind? You know,
Right.
what books did you write? What art did you make? What does anybody care about? Like, how are you going to live forever?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, how are you going to live forever? And I think that almost the people that are doing it the best right now are doing it pretty poorly, which is, well, I have kids. Well, to me, that's not good enough. Just passing on your genes isn't good enough. I think you need to pass on your genes and then position them on your improved position so they can move forward from there and improve their position, and we can all move forward. Is
Right.
that
Well, I mean,
right?
well, that's how you got aristocracies. Really, I mean, that's basically like people who were good at improving the position generationally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden you have kids who've like never worked, like for you know, or done anything. But then they were, you know, you also look at those people like the people who I know who were raised with more money. They also
Mm-hmm.
their communication skills are a little bit better, and they were generally, you know, they have a better education generally, and so
Mhm.
they're kind of poised to rule, even though they've never done anything. You know, in a certain,
Yeah, and obviously,
they're
if we
built to succeed, I guess.
yeah, well, if I was the dungeon master, uh, those people would still exist. It's just their
Yeah,
parents would have been smart enough to put them through hardship in
right.
addition to all the things that they got, so that when they got to the age to rule, they were truly ready to rule correctly, right? So
Yeah, well, that's the
that's
right
just a
way to do it.
failing. That's a little bit of a failing of the last 50 or 100 years. I don't think it's a failing overall of that system.
No, no.
Uh, it's a very recent failing to create those people that aren't capable. But also, you have to have some redundant children so you can lose some. So you have to have enough that one can rule, right?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I mean, it's interesting to think about people who never interested in legacy, because that's really all I care about. To be that,
Mhm.
it's just like when this situation started to go south, I paid my website a year in advance so that I don't disappear from the earth.
Okay. All right.
That's how my brain worked about the whole
Uh-huh.
thing. Like,
Sure.
should I send out chapters of my book, if the next book, if like, so that stays around, stuff like that. I mean, it's
Mhm.
weird, to think about someone who didn't care about that. But then, the opposite side of that is, if you have kids and so forth too, that's one thing.
Mhm.
But, how much are you working for people who you'll never meet because you're dead?
Mhm.
You're trying to
Mhm.
impress people who are dead, who aren't living yet, in a
Mhm.
weird way. It's a funny mind game to a certain extent.
Yeah. To me, going back, I guess we'll probably be using "improve your position" now for years between us.
Yeah, yeah,
But I mean, that's what we were. I mean, kind of what we were put on Earth to do as human beings. That's one of the things that separates from the animals is that we have this generational inheritance, right? And genetically and socially, right? We built culture and the commons, which is the word I love to use is just the commons. Everything, and that could be cultural commons that we've
oh yeah,
built up a culture, but it also is just the physical commons that exists that our current generation, my generation even, has not done that great a job of improving. Most of look at when were all the hydroelectric dams that these great things built, right? When the whole power grid, the freeway system, like who did that?
right,
Well, kind of our parents and our grandparents did it.
yeah,
We didn't do a lot of it, and we have a much more selfish generations now that I think we need to get back to that doing something bigger than yourself. So I definitely wasn't raised that way. I was, I'm a Gen Xer, and I was raised as an individual and all that stuff, and I'm questioning all of that. Well, I
yeah,
should say I'm done questioning it. I already know that it's the wrong answer.
right,
That you need to be a strong individual, but as you talk about, even I think in The Way of Men, is that I love this word is interdependence, right?
mhm,
Is um, you know you want to be a totally awesome individual inside of a crew
right,
of other people, right? And if you're not inside of a crew of other people, then what's the point, really?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's that's one of the things I've actually seen, also with kind of movements. I guess
Hmm.
I'd say, whether whether it's pagans or the manosphere, or all
Hmm.
this, watching all these people. As I get older, I'm better at it. I think, like, watching all these people, like, oh well, he has this to contribute, and he has this to contribute. He's doing
Hmm.
this thing, and this is all good. We can all do this together. I think there's a there's a definite personality or tendency that wants to own everything.
Hmm.
This is just my thing. But
Right.
all the great art movements and everything that's happened in history has been like a whole bunch of people kind of going in the same direction at the same time.
Hmm.
And they're all kind of doing their own thing, and they are being individuals, but they're like, this is generally, we're all feeling the same thing. It's like a zeitgeist.
Hmm.
It's like we're all, yeah, I mean, art movements is what always comes to mind, because they only last for like a short period of time, but it's a whole bunch of people basically riffing off the same theme.
Sure. And there's a synergy, and a synergy that allows them all to accomplish more than they would have accomplished. So for me, I think I use even though I'm an Army guy, not a Navy guy, I use ship crew analogies a lot. And, you got to find your place in the crew, and you don't want to, even if you're the captain of the ship, that doesn't mean you don't want awesome crew members, right? And I think a lot of people, I don't know what it is about, maybe it's some of the manosphere, definitely. It seems like they all want to be ship captains, but they don't want a good crew. They want followers that aren't really thinkers in some ways.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, because it's like, I think that's where the money is. And I've always been really, I've been really probably poor in handling it, because I could be making more money. But then, there's a lot of like pushing products and so forth, which, isn't bad and it's not wrong, and they help people and so forth. But, then you definitely do get like a follower situation. And that was one of the things, like, I could probably find a bunch of dumb guys who like what I say, to like, I could start my own thing, whatever, your organization, whatever. And, but I'd rather be surrounded by, like dudes like yourself, or people who actually have something to offer. People who are accomplished on their own, because then that makes me, rather than like, if I'm just the grand poobah sitting back and saying, dictating, then it's I don't get anything out of it, except for money, but which is good. But I think you get more out of something if you have a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of guys that are accomplished in different ways.
Sure, absolutely. That's been one of my whole goals in life. It's why I spent time in special operations. It's even why I have my business, is like my instructors are guys that I want to be around, right? The other guys that work for me are guys that I would choose to be around even if I wasn't working, right? But now I have the opportunity to, to compensate them and us to do cool things together. And I get to be around people that I really want to be around, that I like, that have cool things to say, that are good at things, all that kind of stuff. And I definitely, I fall into, I obviously, I love to be captain of my own ship. There's no doubt about that. But when I come into port, I want to sit around the table with captains of their own ships, right? That's who captains hang out with, right? Is other captains, right? That's how you get to learn, and you get to, you get to say, hey, I had this situation, and everybody goes, oh, that this is what I did. You get to learn from other competent people. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And people who've been there before and done that, and been through the same things. I mean, I remember one of my favorite things that you've ever said to me is like, well, where you screwed up with mentoring is you mentor 3 people, because one of them is going to, 2 of them are going to suck.
Right. Yeah. You got to build that pace.
I'm like, well, now you tell me,
but I call it the PACE plan. So primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. So the PACE plan, you always got to, that I think I read once the space shuttle, this is way back in the day, I'm sure it's probably different now, but they have 4 computers on it, and they only need one of them to work. Right. So they have double redundancy, right? So, we all need to do that. But also that brings up something you just said there, is another thing that I think that we're really lacking at. And that's another reason why I think we need to join these pre-existing organizations, is we're really bad at mentorship in the modern world. Both being mentors to people and being mentored. And most of us probably, even in my 50s, I probably still should have mentors that are 10 or 20 years older than me, that have already walked some of the paths. And we're bad at that. We're, business mentors. And you're like, well, why would, once again, coming from the background I came from, it's like, yeah, but why do I want to listen to that overweight guy that's old?
Yeah.
Right. Well,
it's hard to find, because it's a time commitment. What a lot of people are doing, actually, is coaching. And it becomes a business, but that's fine. It isn't the way it used to be, but I think that works more when you're in the same community, and to a certain extent. And there's like an older guy who's been in this community, and he has something to gain just because you're in the community too. But I think, with it just being like an exchange of time, it becomes a little bit of a different situation. So, I need somebody to, we both talked about this. I need someone to be like, hey, how could I take this to the next level? I need someone who knows how to do that, because I don't,
right.
what's the next step? Like where do I go from here? And that's what a lot of people are, paying, I think, coaches for. It's like business and stuff.
I think a lot of it, a lot of that would be out there in your local community. Once again, the Masons and the Elks and the this and that, that's how that, if you're already a member of those organizations for the last 10 or 15 years, then you'd already know the guy to ask the question. Right. And so I think we're all just a little bit behind right now because we've destroyed our fraternal organizations, because that's where you were supposed to go to get that knowledge. Now, of course, we can use the internet. You can find people. I don't know. Obviously, the relationship won't be the same because now it's a financial relationship, but it doesn't mean it won't be good. I know guys that have business coaches. I should probably have a business coach. And, they do really well because they have business coaches.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people have been really happy with what they got out of that kind of situation. But anyway, I think it's probably been an hour.
Oh, okay.
So I think so.
Probably.
We had a lot of stops and starts getting going. But anyway, is there any obviously you can't teach gun classes right now because, it's not.
I'm going to try to.
You are?
Well, I'm going to try to do some classes. And
okay.
I actually used Zoom to teach some lectures. I was quarantined for a couple weeks, and I had a class going on, so my coaches were willing to do the physical parts, and I actually did all the gun stuff on the big screen, and it worked pretty actually well, I think, because of the fact I could put a gun right up in front of the screen and show stuff in really close detail. It didn't work that bad, so I'm experimenting with that. So definitely gonna do some lecture type stuff. Some gear stuff. It's really easy to okay, here's how to select a handgun, or here's how to set up your AR-15, or here's how to put your body armor together. We're probably going to do some of that stuff. I'm going to be experimenting with that hopefully this week, making sure that I can do it decently, and then I'll put some classes out there. Yeah. Awesome. So that's what I'm doing right now. Trying to figure out how to use technology. I'm an old guy. I got to figure out how to make my cameras work. And,
you got to learn your new tricks, dude.
Yeah. I know.
All right, man. So they can, and people can find you obviously at Insights Training.
Insightstraining.com. Yep, absolutely. And just started a YouTube channel. We had an old channel, but didn't really have anything on it, and started a new channel, just Insights Training Center. And keep track of us and find us. We should be putting out a lot of electronic content here real soon.
Awesome, man. All right, well, it was good to talk to you face to face. We text all the time, but
yep.
So anyway, thanks for coming on. Start the World.
Yep. Thank you.